We live in a time when innovation and creativity are the path to autonomy, success, and unlimited potential. But our education system is trapped in the industrial age. We are still being fed the story that job security equals freedom. For many of us, that just isn't good enough. Every week, I'm bringing you the stories and experiences of entrepreneurs who don't accept the narrative that there is only one path to success. Their entrepreneurial journey is allowing them the freedom to prioritize both their businesses and their families. They are intentionally building a legacy to lead their family into a new era of innovation and growth. This is Our Modern Heritage Legacy Secrets, and I'm your host, Jody Chafee.
All right, I want to welcome to this show today, Gina Tierno. She is my awesome guest today. She is a sought-after event strategist in the entrepreneurial game. She is the founder of SheGRNDs Events Agency, which teaches 6- and 7-figure digital entrepreneurs how to plan and launch strategic and profitable live events for more freedom, better relationships, and increased profits. Welcome, Gina.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be on the show.
Awesome. I'm so excited to hear more about your story. So tell us a little bit more about your business. Give us an introduction into what you do.
Sure. So it's kind of crazy. I haven't been doing this for so long professionally, but throughout my life, I've always been running and organizing events. And I definitely think that comes back from my parents because they're like little socialites in their communities and they're always like throwing parties or having people over. And like being a full-blooded Italian, like I kind of joke that I'm a thoroughbred because my mom's Italian, my mom's Italian, her mom's Italian, like everyone. On my dad's side too, like everyone's Italian, and like that means food. So, so I think throughout my life, we've always been like throwing parties and organizing events. So I kind of like took that and bridged that with my love for business and kind of created this events agency. And yeah, it's been working out really great so far.
That's awesome. So you help business owners throw events. And so that's really neat because I think that a lot of times, something like that, it's cool that you're able to niche down and to help people who have the businesses and want to throw those parties and stuff. That's cool. That's really neat. So
yeah, connecting with your audience is huge.
Yeah, that's so awesome. That's cool that you're able to be that bridge. That's cool. So what was it that inspired you to become an entrepreneur? What was the moment that you knew I need to be a business owner?
So I'm going to take you all back to 2nd grade. And I was kind of an always natural born leader, which I didn't really realize. But then I remember all these stories that come out, as you grow older and your parents like, you were doing this. Like, I remember that I started a club called the Nature Club in 2nd grade, and everyone had to find me the best acorns they could in the schoolyard and bring it to me. And then like, if it was good enough, I'd let them in my club. And we had like a treasurer and like a secretary, and we're in 2nd grade. So like, what were you a treasurer for? There was no money exchanged. Like we didn't have meetings to take notes. There was no, like, it was crazy. But so I always knew that I wanted to run my own thing. Throughout high school and college, I was always brainstorming, but my family and we kind of grew up, I wouldn't say like middle class, I would say a little bit below middle class. So we didn't have the luxuries of a lot of like new clothes, and we always bought like off-brand things, and we never went out to eat. Like going to McDonald's and Wendy's was like a treat. Like if you were sick, you could go to Wendy's, but like that's it. So we weren't always well off. So I basically had 3 choices. I was, of course, going to go to college. There was no choice there, but it was either accountant, doctor, engineer, or lawyer. So I choose engineering. I'm not particularly good at math or science, but I grinded all the way through college, and I was throwing events for my engineering college for the dean. So I was the one that when a big client came in, I would take them through everything, or I'd host their meet and greets or like college-wide events. So I was always doing that. And then, you just, after college, you get a job, right? So I did that. When you have a degree in chemical engineering, you can only do one thing. It's called chemical engineering, so I got a chemical engineering job and I was miserable. And I knew I wanted out. I know I didn't want that life. I'm not a very good employee. um, I'm not like, my mom always calls it a company person,
Mhm.
like a yes ma'am, no ma'am. And I was always like, hey, I have these great ideas so we can make the company better. And it's like, let's do this. And they're like, wow, you're very enthusiastic. You're very, what was the word they used? Fiery. And like, you have a lot of ideas. And I was like, thank you. And they're like, no,
Yeah.
not think that was an insult. I was like, oh. So I eventually got fired. And that was kind of the urgency that I needed to be like, okay, well, it's sink or swim because now you have to do your own
Yeah.
thing. There's no other options.
Wow, that's awesome. That's great that you were able to figure out how to honor your own, saying from second grade that you were already inspired even as a kid to do these kinds of things. Like coming to realize that you need to do your own thing. It's like almost like honoring your soul in a way. Like this is
Right.
what you were like born to be in a way, that's so cool. That's so cool. So it's like, was there anything, I'm curious, like, what did your parents ever do when you were hosting these things or doing that second grade little business? Were they like encouraging, or what was their attitude when you were doing this stuff?
I think I was seeing them do these things. So like my dad had a car club, my mom had a book club, and I think I just wanted my own club. So I think like subconsciously, I just see them run all these events and they're always like hosting things and like they bring people together. So actually it's funny enough, I had a podcast interview with a purpose coach and like he dug really deep into my background and we decided that because of watching my parents host these things, it's deep down in my soul that I want to bring people together. So I think they definitely encouraged me for sure. But when it came to actually putting down engineering and doing my own thing, they're not quite on board, let's say.
They're still asking you when you're going to get a real job, right?
Yeah.
Stuff like that. You're
I'm
like,
going to be 40 years old and be like, hey, when are you getting a real job?
yeah, yeah, no, it totally happens. Oh, that's awesome. So that's so interesting though that you bring up that you are watching them, because that's when I talk about and hear about and learn about family culture, like a lot of it is that the things that our parents modeled become our culture or becomes like our beliefs about the world and our attitudes and things like that. So that's so
So true.
cool. That's so cool that you saw your parents and it was like permission in a way to just be authentic around what you could explore in that. you know there's a lot of instances of people who like their parents were entrepreneurs or their parents were such and such, and that just like was a natural part of their life because that was like their family culture. So
I also want to say one other thing now that I'm thinking
yeah.
about that off of what you just said. My parents are older. So my mother was 40 years old when she had me, which is
Wow.
somewhat pretty much the borderline for having children. And my dad was 65. So they had me really late in life. And they had other children when they were in their 20s with other spouses. So they had done the raising the children and work thing. And they realized, like, hey, we have this miracle baby, like, let's stop. So my dad actually retired. My mom was already retired. And they were with me the whole time. So I think I never saw them ever go to work. I never saw them
Wow.
do that. So I kind of want to chalk not being an employee person up to never seeing them work. But I'm not entirely sure. But they're definitely not entrepreneurial people. And I didn't know being entrepreneurial was a thing. Like I didn't
Yeah.
know that was an option. No one told me that I could be anything I wanted, like that sucks. Everyone should tell your kids that you can be whatever you want.
Yeah.
And I wasn't really good at one thing. I was good at a lot of things, which I think makes a great entrepreneur personally, because you have to wear so many hats.
Mm-hmm.
But
Yeah. That's so funny because I think that we all grow up with this narrative that it's like you just work until you do the 40 years thing and then you retire, and that's the only time you can enjoy your life is that, that's the narrative, right? But it's like that's kind of cool that you never had that narrative because you always saw your parents like in retired mode. And so it's like,
yeah, they were always
where would
home,
you
man.
ever
Can't get away from them.
but you didn't have that like people going, oh, you see your mom and dad go to work all the time and oh yeah, I'll get a break when I retire someday. That was never part of your like your cultural narrative. So that's so cool that you had that. So that's interesting. That brings me into this concept of like, when you're starting a business, now when you look forward into your future, how do you feel like being an entrepreneur, having a business of your own, how that's going to like enhance your relationships going forward?
So I think I dated a lot in my youth. I mean, I'm still young, but like like I dated a long time. I dated a lot of people. I just never really liked anyone, and I kind of felt like no one could kind of keep up. And I realized until I started dating more entrepreneurial people, like Jamie, who I'm dating now, um, that is the kind of the person I need, because I need that drive, and our values really aligned. And both of us had this idea separately that we wanted to work really hard now while we're in our 20s and in our early 30s, where we can create this business so then we can have it on autopilot and then have time for our kids. Like, neither of us want to be the parents that don't have time for their children. Like, I didn't, that wasn't my narrative, but I saw it on, like, with my friends or like on TV, and like that's something I never wanted, because I had such a amazing, fruitful, exciting, a little bit not wealthy, but like I would never trade money because my parents were working for all of the trips and lessons that I learned over. Does that make sense?
Yes, yes. That's really cool. That's so beautiful, because I think that a lot of times, people think, well, I'm working so that I can provide for my kids and all this stuff. And
Yeah.
meanwhile, they're not spending any time with them and stuff, like the
No,
whole
trust me, your
cats in the
kids will
cradle thing.
thank you. Yeah. I mean, I
Yeah.
wasn't very thankful at the time. It was kind of like, leave me alone. But like, now I'm thankful. So thank you, parents.
Well, and now you see, if seeing that, with your relationship with your parents, and that you're creating this at such a young age, that you're just like, you can create something different when you have your family. It doesn't have to be this like, get out of my space or whatever. You can have the kind of culture and relationships that this is just a natural part of your family, is being together. So
For
that's
sure.
cool.
And me and Jamie always say, like, we love our life, excuse me, our lifestyle, because if something happens, God forbid, one of our parents gets sick, we can put everything down, everything. We can put a whole stop on everything that's going on and go and take care of them at any time. Like,
Yeah.
we have that freedom to be able to do that. Or if you just need the day off, we can do that. Or if, like, I have mental health problems that I suffer from, extreme depression and anxiety, and if I need a mental health day, which when I was in corporate, I needed a lot of, and it was really hard to communicate with, right?
Yeah.
So like, it's either you suffer through it or you take a day. And if you, God forbid, you take a sick day, and it's like, well, you're not really sick because you're not bleeding from your eyeballs. It's like, but I'm sick in the brain. Like, I need a day. So like, I love working for yourself, because you can spend the whole day crying into ice cream if you need to. Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah, I totally 100% agree with that. That's
Yeah.
been, oh man, that's the story of my life. But my husband was working like a commission based, that he could work remotely. So even if he wanted to take a mental health day, they still expected him to produce. So it was just like
What?
no breaks, no breaks. He didn't have a vacation for 6 years.
That's insane. That is
Yeah.
insane.
So
I'm
so
so
you
glad he's out
talking
of
about
that.
this, yeah, like you talking about this, I'm like 100%, I totally agree with that, because I just don't feel like the narrative of like go to work, slave away for your boss is supporting our mental health whatsoever.
Here's my idea. Like, you could slave away for someone else's dream, or you could just slave away for your dream. Like, I'd rather be working for myself, because then you have that momentum, like, and that empowerment and that ownership
Yeah.
of working so hard for yourself instead of someone else. Like, I don't want to buy someone else's yacht. Like, good for you. I would like the yacht. Thank you.
Yes, amen.
No.
Yep. Well, because I think that too, if you're working for your own thing, it's your own creative outlet. It's like you're putting your heart and soul into it, and it's more rewarding, way more rewarding.
Yeah.
So
The long hours don't seem so long anymore.
yeah, awesome. So Gina, thank you so much. How can my audience connect with you and learn more about your resources?
You can head over to my website at SheGRNDs.com. There's no I in grinds. Afterthought, not a great idea, but it's SHE grinds GRNDS.com. And or you can find me on Facebook at Gina Suzanne.
Awesome. So one more question that I like to ask to close out the first portion of this interview is, considering the things that you're creating as a business owner and thinking about your relationships going forward, what is the legacy that you want to leave?
Wow, that's a great question. Let me just think. I want to leave a legacy that you can connect with your audience more intimately and not just like through trashy sales emails or pitchy webinars, and that you can meet them in person, whether it's through workshops, and really build a bond so they know you. And I really don't like the wall that influencers put up. And I'd like to break down that wall between like influencers and the people they influence.
That's awesome. So like authentic community that you are trying to build.
100%.
That's so cool. Cool. Awesome, Gina. That concludes the first portion of our interview.
Thank you so much for listening, but I have to tell you that this is just the beginning. There is more to this episode inside of my Facebook group. I hope that you'll go and request to join that community because it's awesome. There's more podcast content that's exclusive to the group. There's also giveaways, live Q&As, and you can come and ask questions and take part in this awesome community. So please come and request to join at facebook.com/groups/familyculture-strategies. You can also find my page on Facebook at facebook.com/familyculturepodcast. And I'm at Instagram in the same handle, Family Culture Podcast. I hope you'll come and follow me there and join in this movement to create an intentional family culture around being entrepreneurial and integrating and prioritizing your family as you grow your business. So come and join me there. I hope to see you there. You can also come find my website at ourmodernheritage.com. Thank you so much. And remember that if you want to change the world, go home and love your family.